Stop. I will try and scream. Yeah?
Yeah, partially.
Oh, I think I can scream. I'll try and try as much as possible.
I have.
Anyone with a small pin charger for the PC?
Small pin charger, who has?
The PC who charges this with a small pin charger. We are just asking for the power bank. No one?
So I suppose we can start. I'm tired. I think we can start. There's a bit of a problem with the CS system, so I will try as much as possible to scream. Yeah, I've never really thought. I've never used this venue. Right? So you want to be careful here not to fall and break your leg or something like that. You have to forgive me. I think at some point I'll probably go and sit down. I'm tired right now. Apologies. I'm a few minutes late. I'm transitioning from a different activity. It's working?
Yes.
But I think they can hear me, right? I think they can. Sorry? Okay, that's fine. All right, so thank you very much. On with it, I suppose we can start. So my name is Michael Piri, and apparently I'm going to be one of the course instructors for this course, right? Yeah, I'll probably back to some of you and all that. I have a few slides that will introduce me, right? So I'll talk a bit more about myself before we start here. But, I was shocked that you guys were seemingly not interested in, I don't know what's happening here. It's not working, is it? Exactly. So I was shocked, right? So there's this event that's taking place next month between the 28th and the 29th, right? And beginning last year, what we do is we extend invitations to undergraduate students. Usually these are students that are within Lusaka because the event has traditionally been held in Lusaka. So this is called the International Conference in Information and Communication Technologies. And we had extended the invitation. I know you got the invitation from Professor Piri and perhaps Dr. Nyirenda, right? For you to submit abstracts. Because it turns out that there are undergraduate poster presentations that are going to take place between the 28th and the 29th. I have no idea why you guys decided not to actively participate, right? You are leaving UNZA soon. Usually this sort of activity is a perfect opportunity for you to potentially mingle with potential employers, right? Because we tend to have people from industry come through. So I have no idea what's happening here. I think I only saw, I'm working with 2 students from your cohort. That's the only poster submission I saw actually. I don't know what that is about. My recommendation is you probably want to chat to, or you have your course reps, chat to Professor Piri or something, so that he can request on your behalf for the deadline to be extended or something. Just pass this round. Sign. Yes, attendance, right? Expecting 100 plus people here, I see few individuals. Yeah, so you probably want to have your 2 course trips, right? Do that. So today is, I know I'm late here, but today's lecture series is mostly going to be centered around course introduction and to a certain extent just to try and contextualize the course itself, right? So if you want to find out more about me, it turns out that I'm based in the School of Education, Department of Library and Information Science. So my official user profile is there, or you can do a focus search for my name, and then you do a focus search on unza.zm or something. You'll find my details in the event you care. But in addition, it turns out that I'm the founding member, I'm principal investigator for this research group we call the Data Lab Research Group. Okay, it's based at the University of Zambia, and what we do in our lab is we tend to focus on 3 main areas. I mean, we've been branching out here gradually, but if you look at, if you go to our website and you look up information, that's what you notice is that broadly aligned with these 3 main computing areas, right? So data mining, digital libraries, or data management, and technology enhanced learning, otherwise called education technologies here. And really, as it relates to some of the things we're going to be covering here, I thought I'll point you to some sections on the website where you can find data mining centric projects that we've been working towards. So beginning last year, we started working towards this road safety in Zambia project, and our goal really is to try and see how best we can take advantage of computing technologies, right, to improve road safety in Zambia, right? Last year, one of the projects we worked towards was the capstone project, which was worked on by David, Lloyd, Peter, and Harris. And what they were doing really is building. I know there's nothing novel here, but they were building machine learning models for automatically detecting potholes or something, right? A bit trivial here. In fact, if you just do a simple search here on pothole detection, you notice that there's quite a lot that has been done. It tells quite a bit of interesting stuff that these guys did was the implementation of this front-facing application, right? So the deployment aspect of this. So they created this mapping application, which it shows you the different parts of, I don't want to say Zambia here because the case study was Lusaka. So if you feed the application some video footage or something of like a particular road in Lusaka, the output is going to be a map, right, of which sections of that road have potholes or something. And I think I'm going to use this as a case example as I talk about the sections of the course that I'm going to be teaching, which is one of the reasons why I'm talking about this. And in fact, because it's a relatively easier example, right, to use when you're getting started with some of these things. And then, is it before last year or the other year, what we started doing is trying to see if we could try and make legal and legislative documents more accessible. So I worked with this group of undergraduate students. So in our department, because of the sheer number of students that we have, we don't have people working on individual projects, right? You work in parts, work in groups. But the thing is, we scope out the capstone projects in such a way that it's something that is aligned with 4 people working on that project, if you will. I'm not sure if you're working in groups as well, right? I know Cook and Festus are working as a group, so I imagine you've equally formed groups, right? I don't know if it's groups of 3 people or 2 people, 4. How many people in each capstone project group? Yes, finally, capstone project. Oh, okay, yeah. I don't know how the department is managing the numbers here, right? I mean, it's like 100 plus reports to mark or something. Yeah, but that's okay also. So the idea behind this is simple, right? So what these guys were working towards is this branch of AI called natural language processing, and this was, by the way, this was before the hype around LLMs came up, right? So what they were doing is essentially trying to experiment with your classical automatic summarization techniques. So they built this application which, was systematically built, right? They were experimenting with abstractive and extractive summarization. And so what they were trying to do is try and see if they could build software tools which use as input legislative documents like acts, right? You know how you have bills and acts and all those things? The argument they present in their report is that these documents are generally written for technically inclined individuals, right? So you need to be an expert for you to fully understand what's in those documents, right? The jargon, that's is not easy to understand. But also, these are usually long documents. Not very long documents, but they are lengthy, right? So the average person on the street will not really be able to understand what is in those acts, right? Or bills or something. You know, so build a piece of software which takes as input an act, for instance, and then it produces like a summary or something. And you know, one would argue that you could probably easily come up with an implementation using your typical large language model, right? But I thought I would mention this nonetheless. And then because of my background, so my doctoral dissertation was in educational technologies. So I have a bit of an interest in educational technology. So we've been doing a bit of educational data mining, right? Back in 2020, 2022 or something, I was working with a group of undergraduate students, and we were trying to experiment with building a prediction model that would be able to tell us which students were more likely to fail. So the premise behind this is simple, right? There's a course that I was teaching since I joined the ONS. I'm not teaching it anymore. It's a computer systems and architecture course, and the failure rate was quite high, right? And so the thinking there was, is there something that we can do to intervene, right? So the idea behind the project we're working towards is, early on in the process, like maybe the first couple of weeks, once the students come in, can we identify students that are more likely to perform poorly, right? And so we were looking at a number of interesting markers, right? Like things like your background, which school did you go to? Did you do any sort of computer studies training? Things like, to what extent do you access Moodle, right? That's engagement. So we're a bit successful, and to a certain extent, actually, when I was still teaching this, I would use it, right, to help me identify students that were more likely to perform poorly. I don't usually fail here, right? But it was quite accurate to a certain extent here, right? Or data mining. And then since 2023 or something, I don't know, since 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I started working towards one of my obsessions, right? For the longest of time, I've been a Wikipedian. So I haven't really been active these last couple of years. What I occasionally do when I have time on my hands is I'll go on Wikipedia and I'll make edits, right? So I'm a Wikipedian here. Now, it turns out that there are very few people like me, I put myself out there, that are willing to go on Wikipedia and contribute content. And if I were to ask here how many people here have a Wikipedia account and edit on Wikipedia, I know I do. Anyone else? 2. Now, shame on us, right? I mean, this is, and you guys are doing computer science here, right? So what we're trying to do in this project is we're trying to see if we can try and improve the uptake, right, of contributions as they relate to Wikipedia content on and about Zambia. So we're doing a whole range of things, and these guys here were mining interesting information like the wiki histories of different Zambian pages, right? And then this year I managed to convince a master's student to see if he can work on something slightly different, right? So he's working on, or he's leveraging a branch of AI called natural language generation, trying to see if he can build solutions that will be able to automatically generate content that can then be used to edit Wikipedia. I mean, if you go to the University of Zambia page, right, outdated here, right? There's very little content. In fact, it doesn't have some schools listed or something. So what he's trying to work towards is, can we, because we know that it's not easy for you to become a Wikipedian. It's a lot of work, actually. It's a thankless job, but it's a lot of work. You have to do research and all that. So he's trying to see if he can automatically identify sources of content get that content, and then present it to a Wikipedian so that it's a lot easier for that person to edit the content. Now, I know what you're thinking, right? Well, but why can't we use large language models, right? I can just go to ChatGPT and tell ChatGPT, generate content about the School of Public Health, right? Because it's not there. Well, it turns out that these things hallucinate, you know this, right? There's a lot of slope on the internet, right? And so one of the things he's doing is trying to see if he can take advantage of, I'm sure you guys have heard of RAG, or retrieval augmented generation techniques, right? Where you are making use of what we call a single source of truth, right? So a database that would have fact-based information. But also, one of the things he's going to be working towards is trying to see if he can, fine-tune these open LLMs, right? I don't know how many of you are aware, but I know my 2 students are aware here because we had some discussions about this. But you can actually download an open source LLM, right? So the equivalent of what powers ChatGPT or what powers Cloud AI, right? So they're open source LLMs. You can download them and you can fine-tune them to suit your use case. And it makes sense, right? Because it turns out that if you're a large organization, for instance, like ZRA, and you wanted to take advantage of what LLMs do, it would be difficult for you to make effective use of those things because some of the information or data that you generate is private, right? These things are built in such a way that they take advantage of publicly available information on the web. So you can download these models and then you can fine-tune them or something. Anyways, so Wikipedia, right? Quite a bit of stuff that we've been doing here. You'll find a whole bunch of publications, also capstone project reports and journal and conference proceeding papers as well on that. And then since I joined the UNZA here, I've been obsessed with visibility of online research as it relates to Zambia. So if you go on Google Scholar and you just do a focus search, try and see how much content is coming from Zambia, right? You do a site full:.zm or something, or ac.zm, what you notice is that there's very little content available online. So we've been doing a whole bunch of things with a number of my students. In fact, some of them are not listed here, right? Building, classifiers to help us, classify different types of scholarly publications. And I'll use some of the data sets here as examples in the parts of the course that I'm going to be teaching here. We're working towards projects that are aimed at automatically generating metadata, for instance. So exciting things, in my opinion. I think in part because we've been doing this for quite some time. And usually, when you find yourself doing something over and over again, you have this illusion that you're doing something very important, right? I don't know. I think it's important. Yeah, I think it is important actually because it turns out that one of the things that we're doing, the way we gauge whether something is important, the way I gauge whether something is important, we'll normally look at what the outside world thinks about what we're doing, right? So at some point last year, we managed to attract a little bit of funding. So 3 entities, IFIL, WACREN, and Agile gave us a little bit of money, right? So I don't know if this thing is going to pop up here, but I can always share this later on. They gave us a little bit of money, and so we are working towards this project, which is aimed at improving the visibility of journals at UNZA. We have like 15 journals at UNZA. I don't know if you guys are aware of this. But anyway, so we've done quite, in fact, if you were to take stock of the work we've been doing, you notice that there's quite a bit of work we've done around this project here. And then beginning some 2022 or something, we started collaborating with, we secured some funding, first from the UNZA, and then we got some funding from Google Research, and then also from Data Science Africa. And with this money, we've been able to work towards some really interesting things. So we've collaborated with colleagues from the invest teaching hospitals. So Dr. Chibuta, I don't know if Ernest is anywhere here, but Dr. Zulu, Dr. Mbewe. And what we're doing here is we're working towards improving or trying to make radiological workflows more efficient and effective. So as it relates to what we're doing, a whole bunch of things. We're developing tools and all those things. But some of the interesting things we've been able to do is, for instance, we built models that can automatically, I don't want to say interpret here, but yeah, they can automatically interpret medical images. Right? So if you are sick and the doctor suspects you have something like tuberculosis or something, they will tell you need an exam, right? You need to go to the radiology department and get an X-ray and all those things. The whole process is manual, but the interesting thing about that manual process is that at some point, an expert called the radiologist will have to read that medical image, right, the X-ray, and come up with an interpretation report. Now, that process takes quite a bit of time. So what we're doing is building supervised machine learning models, right, that can automatically kind of like predict whether an image is associated with, well, we've only worked on one pathology, pneumonia or not, right? So I'm working with this really brilliant student, Malanzio, really smart student, and part of what he's doing is he's been building, you know, detection models, localization models, but also classification models, right, for pneumonia, in other words. And then beginning this year, we've collaborated with the Cancer Disease Hospital, so Festus and Kuka are trying to solve a problem that's associated with a different workflow associated with radiology, right? So generation of reports. It turns out that generation of reports is time consuming, right? So these radiologists will have to, after interpretation, you'll fire up a web processor like Microsoft Word and type the report, and it takes quite a bit of time, right? So what these guys are doing is can we automate the process of generating those images, right? And because there are a lot of different types of reports that can be generated, right? There's a report dedicated to tuberculosis, you know, pneumonia, prostate cancer. Their focus is on cervical cancer, right? Because it turns out it's a huge problem in Zambia or something. So quite a number of interesting things we've been doing here. And I'm highlighting all of these things because some of these things will pop up, but also they provide us with like classical examples contextualized within the Zambian context, right? Related to some of the things that we're going to be doing, at least for the part of the course that I'm going to be handling here. Now, I'm sure you saw that document that was shared by Professor Piri. Apparently, I was looking at it for the first time right about the same time you saw it, you know, because I was caught unaware here, right? I didn't prepare for this course here. But apparently, by the time we get to September, is it September 12th or something, the last day of classes, you guys should be in a position where you're able to explain, you know, concepts associated with data mining and, you know, data warehousing, right? Including the applications and challenges. Now, what you notice, some of these learning outcomes will probably come up towards the end. Some of them will be at the beginning and all those things, so be on the lookout. But also, we should be in a position where we are able to pre-process data. So the idea behind pre-processing is quite simple, really, right? Before you can build these fancy things like, oh, we built a model that automatically predicts, or it automatically tells us whether a medical image is associated with pneumonia or not. Before you can do that, right, you have got to collect the data from somewhere, right? When you collect that data, you have got to clean it up, right? Make sure that it doesn't have any sort of errors and all those things. Once you clean it up, the next phase is typically you transform the data, because it turns out that most of these estimators or algorithms that you use, right? By the way, there's nothing new about these estimators. If you ask Manai, they will tell you that it's reusing things that already exist. But before you can feed this clean data into the algorithm, it has got to be transformed, right? So it has got to be converted into a form that these estimators are expecting. Typically, they'll say numbers, right? Yeah? So pre-processing is centered around cleaning up the data and transforming it, right? Sometimes, I guess, there's a bit of dimensionality reduction and all those things because you're trying to reduce the compute resources that are going to be required here. So we are going to look at these things, and it turns out that depending on the type of data that you're working with, the pre-processing techniques that you use are different. So for instance, if you're working with text, you will notice that we will talk about a whole range of interesting things. I hope the register is going around, by the way. A whole range of, where is it? Interesting things like stop word removal, right? We also have to make sure that we apply stemming algorithms or something, right? So this notion that before you actually feed your model this textual data, you want to convert certain terms into their root form. Zambia, Zambian, Zambian are one and the same thing, right? You will notice really that when you are transforming textual input, you typically work with these large vectors, right? And when you have a large vector, what that means is that you're going to end up using a lot of compute resources. So the goal is to reduce compute resources. But anyway, so look at preprocessing. And look at the time here, we'll probably focus a lot more on textual data. And in fact, I haven't really had a conversation with Professor Piri and Dr. Nyirenda to find out what this, apparently there's supposed to be like some project or something, the nature of this project, but text is usually easier because it's a lot easier for us to gain access to data. Data about text is everywhere here. If I have included this as an example, I'm working with another master's student, right, who's working with text. What he's trying to do is, his project is tied to, it's not here, but it's supposed to be here. But his project is tied to, you know, what we've, anecdotal evidence seems to suggest that if you look at mainstream media, there's very little reported about what comes out of entities like UNZA, right? Like if you were to go to Lusaka Times, I mean, how many times have you come across, oh, this nice project that was done in the CS department by fourth-year students has been published on Lusaka Times or even Zambia Daily Mail. It's almost not there. But there's a lot that comes out of this institution, right? And you think of the range of projects that you guys are going to work on. It's not just you. There's engineering, there's medicine, there's public health, right? And so what he's trying to do here is trying to say, can we build a suite of tools that will be able to help? Because the argument is making is part of the reason why we don't see things in there is because these documents that you produce at the end of the year, they're difficult to read, right? I mean, how many people are going to read 100+ pages? You understand this? You know, how many people are going to understand, I don't know what sort of projects you guys are working on, but how many people are going to understand the range of projects that you're working on? So again, he's working on summarization, but for him to get to the summarization part, what he's doing is he's trying to demonstrate the severity of the problem. And so he's going out there and crawling everything that has been published by entities like Lusaka Times and then Watchdog, Movie TV, right? Extracting that information, titles and the actual content, and then classifying those things, right? To try and figure out how many of these articles are associated with research. It's a classic binary classification problem, if you think about it. But the input is text. You know, so what he's doing here is doing a whole range of processing. And before, I guess 3 years ago, it was an exciting era because you typically handcraft a lot of these things. But with these large language models, I don't know. But apparently we have got to teach you how to handcraft these things, so how you build classifiers, for instance. I don't know. Anyways, and then apparently one of the learning outcomes is you're supposed to be taught how to implement data mining algorithms. I don't know if it's algorithms. I think it's supposed to be implement AI models, right? Because I don't think the course is focused on teaching you how to implement naive Bayes, for instance, or nearest neighbor, right? No. But it's like, how do you build a classifier? How do you build a clustering algorithm? I was sitting in on some interesting presentation by a master's student, is it 2 years ago? Is it last year? I think it was last year, I think it was. I think he works for Zanaco, and what he was doing is he was taking advantage of classification to try and identify fraudulent transactions. You know, so if you look at an entity like Zanaco, for instance, there's a lot that is currently happening, right? People are transacting using mobile money, Zapit, ATM machines, over the counter, God knows what else, right? So his argument is that the current methods that are used to detect fraud, they have gaps here, right? They're questionable. They're not as efficient or effective. So we're taking advantage of clustering. Right? So can you build something that takes in as input a whole bunch of transactions for a particular month, and then it clusters them in such a way that those groupings will be able to tell you which groups are suspicious. And then these fraud experts will be able to focus on those fraudulent or perceived fraudulent transactions. So anyway, implementation of data mining models, and then apparently at some point we'll have to have a discussion centered around design of data warehouses. I don't think I'm going to come in here. I think I'm going to part ways with you either here or here or something. I'm not really sure. But either Professor Piri or Dr. Nyirenda will come in and talk about this. And then there's supposed to be like a discussion of evaluation of data mining models. You know, when I looked at this, I sat there and actually, there's no way you can talk about implementation without discussing evaluation. So as you're discussing implementation, the idea is you're supposed to be talking about evaluation, right? So if you build this classifier that it tells you he's going to fail, sorry, or they're all going to fail or something. How do we trust, to what extent do we trust this thing, right? We have got to measure it, to evaluate it. And typically, some of the metrics used are like accurate. So you tell people, oh, this thing is 90% accurate or 80% accurate or something like that, right? So as you're implementing, you're testing this thing. Because it turns out that your implementation actually would also take into account evaluation as it relates to these different configurations. If you're building a binary classifier, you have a choice of using KNN and perhaps naive Bayes, for instance, right, or decision trees. The question is, what do you choose, right? Before you can actually come up with a model, you've got to make a choice amongst these three. And what you do is you typically would evaluate this. You say, which one will result in the best accuracy? So you're evaluating, in essence, as you are implementing. Although, I mean, one would argue that the evaluation sometimes you take into account things that have nothing to do with the effectiveness, right? It could be things like usefulness, right? Sure, we've built this model that helps a lecturer know who is going to perform poorly, but to what extent does this lecturer find this useful or something? Yeah, about that, yeah, right? We are late. I'm suspecting, in these other courses that I teach, right, attendance counts towards marks or something, so I don't know if you're going to be deducting marks here or, but why I'm passing around the register, I've not interacted with Professor Period. But also, right, besides evaluation, there's apparently we're supposed to, one of the learning outcomes is we'll be able to apply data mining and data warehousing tools, right, to typical real-world problems. Now, when there was mention about Python here, and again, I haven't interacted with Professor Piri and Dr. Nyirenda, but the assumption is there's no way we can start a discussion of these other things like processing and implementation without having a very quick introduction to programming, right? Again, we haven't discussed what sort of tools we're going to use, but I will probably use Python. And I don't know if there's a course where we've been taught how to program in Python yet. We have? Which course is that? Okay. Well, if that's the case, then we don't have to worry about this. We can cruise through this and maybe just focus on some important libraries, right? That at least the libraries that I'm going to use or something. In fact, my plan was to start with a Python 101 or something, Python for data mining and warehousing, but maybe we can skim through that or something. And then apparently we're supposed to have a discussion around ethical issues here, so things like privacy, bias in data mining, right? Again, this is where Professor Piri and Dr. Nyirenda will probably come in here. Now, we started late here, but just to give us an idea of how this is supposed to be done. I don't have the detailed program document to check the credit scores associated with the course itself. But what I do know is, an undergraduate course is supposed to be 3 lecture sessions. I think you're supposed to have 2 hours of tutorials every, I don't know if it's more here, but it could be less because you're 4th years, I don't know. But I want to draw attention to these things here, right? We are supposed to wind up by the 12th of September. So we're slightly behind here, I think. We lost out on about maybe 2 weeks worth of classes, I think it is, or something. And again, according to that document that was shared, apparently, I thought it was strange here, right? They said we're supposed to have class at 9, and then we have today, right? At 9, and then we have class at 11 again. So I don't know. My proposal is, at least for my part of this, I'm going to sit down with Chela here, I guess, and Lela, I think it is, so that we can agree on on where we can move one of these slots. My proposal is convert this into a virtual session. So we have class tomorrow. I'll share my availability. I think I'm available between 14 and somewhere around 17. So we can choose a slot. We have a virtual session. And then because, Professor Peter approached me, I couldn't say no here, right? So because we may need to catch up here, I also propose that maybe we have a session over the weekend or something like that, a virtual session. But so in principle, we are agreeing that we're going to be having a session on Tuesdays, at least for my part of the course. And then we'll maintain the 11 hours class, but we're moving this 9 hours class to a Thursday slot. We'll have to realign this with your, I imagine you have different timetables and all that, so I'll reach out to the two course reps and then we can agree on that here. And then in terms of administration of the course, you will find resources. Slide deck is going to go on the Moodle. I did not have access to the Moodle side. At least I didn't have editing teacher role up until a few minutes before I came through. So I will upload the slide deck and any other materials on the Moodle. All the resources you will find here. I don't know, in the event that there are large files, fourth year I don't think, usually when I'm teaching in first year, it's like, sir, can you please share the software? But come on, fourth year, you just tell somebody, we're using Python 3, right? Version 3, and you know what to do here. But in the event that we need to share certain files, we'll try and see if we can make them available or something via Google Drive or something like that. Listen, some of the, again, on prescribed and recommended texts, I guess this is because they're in the program document, but we all know that, we all know where to go to find resources, right? We know how to do research at fourth year. But there's a range of prescribed texts. What I do myself, though, is towards the end of each lecture slide, I would typically have a list of references. So these are resources that I have used to compile the slide deck, right? So I don't know. And in terms of tools, again, for my part, we haven't agreed here, but I'm assuming it's Python. So we'll be using Python here. In the event that you want to replicate what I'm going to be doing, this is my setup, right? Most of the things, though, that I'm going to be sharing with you, you can actually run using, OLAP, so it shouldn't be a problem. Some of these will probably be used by myself, but maybe Professor Peter or Dr. Miranda, I don't know, something. So some libraries that we're probably going to go through together when we have this mild introduction, Python or something. We don't have to talk about these things. You can read up on this and just go to the links here, right? Look up on these things here. And then in terms of the breakdown, apparently this is how the course is broken down, like a 40%. I don't know what this is here. It's the wild west now, right? You have people that you are cheating a lot now, right? You give you an assignment and you just go online here, right? I've flipped things. I teach a software engineering course, and there's this research methods course, and students were not too happy at the fact that I've flipped the scores now. More marks towards like presentations. So we had a series of presentations. You could tell here that the things that were submitted versus what they were talking about, a huge disconnect. It's a sign for us that these people are cheating or something. So anyways, I don't know about this. I'll have to liaise with Professor Peter. I don't know what this means here. But certainly for my part, there's probably going to be a test or something, right? So it's a 40-60 split apparently, and we all know this. So no need to worry about this. I think we have contact details for Professor Peter and Dr. Nyirenda, but in case you need my details, that's my email address. If you want to come and see me for whatever reason, no, this is Wednesday. I'm available on Wednesdays from 8 to 10. You will find me in the office. If you want to come and see me for whatever reason, in room 515, it's called the Education Building. But in the event that you're not available on Wednesdays between 8 and 10 and you still want to see me, please just drop me an email and or check my availability and then tell me, can I come and see you during this free slot of yours or something. But usually most of these issues can be handled via email, right? In my opinion, I don't know, but who knows, right? And then I've created a mailing list. It's taken a while for me to. It's taken a while for me warm up to this idea of using WhatsApp, right, as a form of communication. I don't know how I feel about that, right? For formal communication, it's difficult to keep track of things, right? And so what I prefer myself is emails. So there's a mailing list I've created. Most of communication from me is, for the most part, is going to come from the mailing list. Every now and then I'll look into the group and see what's going on, but I'll rarely post things in that group. Which is why I know the course reps here are saying, but you created another group here. Yeah, I mean, that's for in the event that I'm really late, right? And I know you won't check your mails. Most of our students don't check mails. I'll send the course reps a message. I'm going to be late. Can you tell the others and all those things? But there's a mailing list that has been created. If you're not yet part of this mailing list, the two course reps have been given manager role access to this, so they will add you. In fact, you can just click on the link and then just click on the ask to join so that you join the mailing list. Whatever communication, maybe about assessments and all those things, will be done by the mailing list. In fact, at this point, at fourth year, right, we should be sharing ideas, right, via the mailing list about the course, whatever it is you want to share. CSC 4742 at unza.zm. If you're a part of this, you can send the message to that mailing list. I don't know about Professor Piri and Dr. Nyirenda, but I feel very strongly about academic dishonesty. So if you're caught wanting, we know this thing of academic dishonesty in the age of large language models is a moving target, right? It's difficult to detect or to find out who is cheating here. But if you're caught wanting, I promise you, I will use you as an example. And maybe you will come back, right, next year or something like that. I have told you this, right? Hey, but I'm not saying you shouldn't use these tools, right? This is the future. I was talking to, I don't know who I was talking to here. I was telling them that usually when you have these important points in time, turning points in time, right? Radical technologies like AI, there's usually a bit of resistance, right? I'm of the view that, sure, we're not tolerating academic dishonesty, but I'm alive to the fact that AI is here to stay, you know, but yeah, don't use it to cheat, right? And it's like no one has to tell you that killing somebody is bad or something. Weird example. No one has got to tell you that you're cheating. You will know that you're cheating, right? So if you're caught, it will be used as an example here. But you probably want to understand these things and be alive to the fact that these things hallucinate, right? So you want to be aware of those things. I must say this, one of my master's students, when I was meeting them for the first time this year, right? Masters in computer science student, they'll remain nameless. I'm working with a number of them, so you won't know who. He submits a proposal, and I'm reading through the proposal, and I can tell just by reading that what he's talking about is just garbage, right? I look at the references and non-existent references. You know how these things are designed, right? They are designed to please you unless if you explicitly prompt it in a certain way. So it was generating like references that don't exist. Yeah. So I was there telling him, this is bad. We must not do this, right? I don't want to have to tell you that this is bad. We must not do this. Okay. I think we'll leave it at this. I think there's another class here. I don't know if any thoughts about this so far. We're going to go through some course introduction. I always like to contextualize my courses. So tomorrow when we meet virtually, we can have a bit of context. Please, I hope everybody has signed the register. No, but why? So if there are no questions, thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. The course rep, can I ask, the course rep, can I ask you, help me with the register? I don't know if you're ready.